Okay, so again, thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Stacy Aquero. I'm the Associate Director for International Admissions here at Stony Brook University. And today we're going to talk a little bit about the college search process, where to start, and really how to find your fit. And whether you are just finishing your first year of high school or just about to enter your last year of high school, there's a number of factors to consider and a variety of things to look at when thinking about where you want to go to school, where you want to study, and how to help you find the right fit as to where to apply and attend. When thinking about coming to school in the United States specifically, and we know that there are other options that many students, international students, consider, the UK, Australia, Canada. But when you're thinking of also coming to the US, there's a number of universities in the US, and there's over 4,500 options in the US. And so different types of universities and colleges and different naming conventions a little bit than other countries. So it's important to understand a little bit about what the US education system is like. For one, in those 4,500 options, there are public universities and private universities. In the US, public universities, besides what we have, are military federal academy, but the majority of universities that are public are run through the state that the university is in. So for example, Stony Brook University is a public university. We're in the state of New York. So we're part of the State University of New York system, or SUNY, S-U-N-Y. So each state has its own public university system. And then there are private universities. In some countries, you, depending on where you live, may only consider a public university in your home country, whereas in the US, public versus private is not something that has better ranking or prestige or an education. It's really about the funding of the university. A public university will have supplemental funding from the state, whereas a private university comes strictly out of tuition and donor and other kinds of funding. And then there are different types of schools that how they're categorized. For one, a research university tends to be a little bit on the larger side, offer not only undergraduate programs, but graduate and PhD levels, tremendous amount of research, and of course can be public and private. The word college is also used a lot. Outside of the US, college oftentimes could be meaning a secondary school, or what we call here in the US high school. However, college in the US is a bachelor's degree program. Sometimes even some colleges will have master's level programs, but typically a smaller amount. It does not mean, again, that there's any less ranking or prestige. There's still research happening kind of at all of these levels. Oftentimes a college may be smaller than a large research university, but it can still have thousands of students. Community college is a 2-year associate's degree program. They offer a lot of times specialty kind of degrees, as well as oftentimes your general education, and then can transfer into a 4-year school. Oftentimes in other countries, sometimes feel that community college is not something that they want to consider. However, it is really something that we encourage students who might need to boost their GPA, as well as may need to offer opportunities for funding. Some community college in the US will offer housing opportunities, and I'm happy to connect you with ones in the New York area that do offer housing and make an ease of transition to transfer to Stony Brook. In the US, there's also other kinds of programs like technical or specialized vocational schools, pathway programs, which kind of offer both English as well as academic courses, again, for those students maybe who need some additional studies before coming to a four-year university, as well as language institutes, so pure English programs. Excuse me. Also part of the university and degree structure are some terms. So when you're coming to university in the US, when you are just completing your secondary education, your high school, you are entering as a freshman student, a first-year student, versus if you have attended any university after high school, you come in as a transfer student. When you finish a bachelor's degree, your undergraduate degree, then you may apply for graduate and PhD programs. Within the graduate and PhD programs, there are also professional level programs, common programs that many students are interested in, things like medicine, dentistry, pharmacy, even law. In the US are all graduate level programs. So you need to do a pre-program, a pre-med, a pre-law within your undergraduate degree, and then apply to those professional level programs. And we're happy to talk more about those kinds of programs and how they work if you want. So as I mentioned in the introduction, when considering what may be a right fit for you, the first thing that, of course, as an international student, you want to consider is why maybe I want to study in the US. And there are a number of reasons why to study in the US. One, of course, is worldwide recognition. Many of universities in the US, including Stony Brook, have tremendous rankings, not only in what we call US News and World Report, but throughout world rankings like QS and Times Higher Ed. Many employers, which are global employers having offices throughout the world, will prefer a US degree. There are top-rate facilities in many US universities beyond academic buildings and libraries. So you will have athletic facilities and residential facilities, student activity facilities, our labs also within those academic spaces are typically up to date and have top-rate rankings. A broad range of US degree offerings. So this is one that I want to take a minute on because it really helps distinguish studying in the US versus some other countries. And that when you come to study in the US, you will study not just your academic area of interest, which is known as your major, but most schools will have a general education curriculum alongside of that. And this allows for a whole host of reasons why it's great to have what we call this more liberal arts education, or what we describe as this US degree offerings. So for one, beyond studying your major and these general education curriculum courses, you have the opportunity within that to take even elective courses. So you're taking courses beyond your major of interest to you. This also allows you to sometimes be able to double major, so have two majors that you're graduating with, or even add what's known as a minor, which is a smaller major. In US universities, many schools offer a large number of majors too. So at Stony Brook, we offer over 200 academic majors and programs to choose from. So even because of this broad range, you have the option to change your mind once you are at school. So you can actually change your major, where we know in many universities outside of the US, that's not always an option. So maybe you want to be a history major, and then you come and take a psychology course. And when you take that psychology course, you decide, I want to change to psychology. So you are able to do that. And having this general education curriculum, having the chance to take elective courses, be all beyond your major courses, allows you a lot of flexibility in the curriculum. It also just allows you to take things outside of your interest or your major and take things of interest. So of course, we have a lot of students who are focused on things like pre-med or other health-related areas or engineering, but have a love of art and music and just want to take some of those classes because of their interest. And that allows you to do that. Other opportunities or reasons why students should study in the US: diverse student body populations. Many schools will have not only a diversity of students internationally, but domestically as well. At Stony Brook, we are ranked in the top 10 most diverse universities in the country. So really a wonderful opportunity to meet students from all over the country, all over the globe, from a variety of different cultures and diverse backgrounds. And another great reason why to study in the US is the opportunity to obtain valuable work experience. This is through a number of ways. It's not just internships and what we call CPT and OPT, but the experiences you are going to receive, in particular at Stony Brook, are the experiences outside of the classroom, what we call learn by doing. And you will have a number of opportunities to gain experiences and skills that are going to be needed for the workforce. So just by being involved in some academic clubs and going to workshops, you are going to have some valuable experience. But of course, opportunities like research as a first-year student, even internship opportunities, which could be what we call CPT, which is curricular practical training. All of these things will help lead you to gain your work experience. So now that I've talked a little bit about why studying in the US, again, part of that finding the right fit and figuring out how do I even start this process is to do a little bit of a self-reflection. And that means you need to ask yourself some questions. So again, whether you are just about to start your last year of high school or just have started high school, this is always good to kind of keep in the back of your mind, and keep in mind that these things may change as you grow. You sometimes enjoy different things or see things in different ways each year. But you really want to think academically, of course. What subjects do you enjoy learning about? What subjects are you good at? So I may really enjoy learning about physics, but I may not be very good at it. So those are things to consider. When you choose a major, you want to make sure that you're going to be successful and you don't want to struggle. So think about how you perform in some of those subjects. So you also want to think about your academic qualifications, the grades you have, any test scores, if you want to submit them or not, as many schools are test optional in the US. And of course, selectivity. Are you taking, depending on your curriculum, are you taking higher level, more challenging courses? We know not everyone's high school offers a selection like that, so it really depends on the high school. And in the review process at Stony Brook, we understand that and take that into consideration. You also want to think about your involvement in school, outside of school, any activities, community service, clubs, volunteering, any kind of work you may have, anything like that. Those are all things that will be part of your application package when you are looking to apply. So I we'll probably talk about it later, but I always start to say within this, organization is a little bit of your friend. So keeping, whether it's a paper notebook or some kind of Word document or Google document of, listing out your activities, making sure you have all of these things. So when you are ready to apply, you're not scrambling to find a list of all of these things. So I particularly talked about the factors that you need to consider when looking to find the right fit. And listed on the screen here, I think, are some of the most important factors for students to consider when finding the right fit. For one, of course, is academic interest. You are ultimately coming to university for a college education, for an undergraduate degree, and looking to major in something to then pursue a career in. So, of course, we talked already about subjects you're good at. There's nothing worse than starting out school, there's a lot of changes, and then struggling academically. So those are sometimes those real inner kind of reflections to know what I'm going to be successful in and what I'm not going to be successful in. The majors offered on campuses. I always give the example here at Stony Brook, we offer over 200 different kinds of programs, but we don't offer everything. We don't offer things like architecture and interior design. So if you are 1000% set on being an architect, then that obviously Stony Brook is not a fit for you. But of course, if you are interested in the health areas and marine sciences and engineering, journalism, business, and many of our humanities and social science programs, then Stony Brook may be a great fit for you. And what are your career goals? Those are things to really consider in the academic interest area. Of course, within that, then you're going to want to look at admissions criteria and do you, are you within the range of GPA, of perhaps test scores when considering applying. Location and size is also another big one. And when I talk location and size, there's a number of things to consider. Most people look at location and say, do you want to be in a city? Do you want to be in a suburb? Do you want to be more rural? But I also remind international students that location is also about travel time from your home country to the campus. What does that travel look like in terms of a nearest international airport? How am I getting from that nearest international airport to campus? Is there, is it close by? Is it another plane? Is it a train? And what is sometimes that distance I'm willing to travel? Size of university also is something of importance. Whether you want a large school, a small school, average class size, all things to consider. Cost, of course, is a major factor. What is not just the tuition, but the fees, room and board, any scholarships offered at that university, both merit and need-based. And then you have to consider what's important to you as well. Things that may be important to you or research opportunities, and at what time can I participate in those research opportunities? What are the clubs and activities? Diversity, ranking, safety. I also like to take a moment in this time to really mention that all of these factors have different weights of importance to different people. So I mentioned location and the timing it gets to campus from your home country, from your airport. That might not matter to you at all. whereas some people that might matter most. So only you can kind of weigh which is more important. And keeping all of these in mind, when you're starting to apply and then even get admitted, helping you again come back to these to weigh down which is most important when I make my final decision as to from where I'm admitted, where I'm going to go. Of course, we do know that cost is a big factor. And so I wanted to take an extra moment in explaining a little bit of what some of those funding opportunities are, because a financial fit oftentimes is one factor that comes up most important. So you need to understand that there are different models of funding opportunities, and for international students, it is mostly scholarships. The term financial aid in the US does encompass everything, but at the same time, it's really about government money from either the state that the school is in or that you live in, or the US government. And as international students, you do not qualify for that state or US government money. But you may qualify for merit-based scholarships. Merit-based scholarships are based solely on your grades from high school. Each school will have a different kind of calculation of how they may offer it, if they offer merit-based money, how much they offer, and how they kind of use it, whether it's solely GPA based, whether it's GPA and test score based, if they are not test optional, if any other components of your application are part of that. It's also sometimes not for everyone. They might have a separate application and might be a limited merit-based scholarship. So these are very individual that you will have to ask each university that you are considering and then applying to. If cost is something that is a factor, I always really recommend talking to whoever is going to be assisting you fund your education, and come up with what I call a budget. The majority of folks, their parents are helping supplement and fund their education. So what is that roundabout number? I will use Stony Brook as an example. Stony Brook tuition, fees, room and board for the 23-24 academic year was about $48,000 a year. On average, our scholarships range from $1,000 to $6,000. So if in a conversation with whoever is helping fund your education, they say their budget is $45,000 a year, then with that scholarship, Stony Brook is within a financial fit for you. Some universities will offer need-based scholarships and aid. Oftentimes these are application-based, and they are based on proof of financial need. So submitting financial forms in terms of parents' salary and income, assets, bank accounts, and a number of other things to prove the need, the financial need. There are other kind of scholarships offered, like talent-based scholarships. That's oftentimes things like dance, music, acting, and sometimes you have to major in those things in order to receive that. Athletic scholarships at many universities, including Stony Brook, we're a Division I school, and that means that through our National Collegiate Athletic Association, universities are able to offer athletic scholarships for students who are playing on a number of teams. You're often recruited by that coach and offered that scholarship. There are student loan options oftentimes in your home country to help supplement that education. And so those are things to consider when you're also considering your parent budget. So there might be a conversation of, well, I was planning to take out 20,000 US dollars in a loan and being able to supplement the rest. So those are things to consider. When coming to the US, many institutions will allow international students to work on campus, typically 20 hours a week. Students are not allowed to work off campus for pay. We know that safety is also one of those big concerns. And even as you students are considering all of the factors that are important to you, oftentimes your parents are really more concerned about safety. And we do know that often the media that portrays US cities and US campuses sometimes as being unsafe. But we really encourage you to talk to each school. Each school will be very different in terms of where they're located, their proximity to perhaps a larger city or something you've seen on TV. But all schools will have campus safety or even police on campus. They have a number of ways to ensure your safety through buddy programs and escort programs. Stony Brook, we even have like GPS apps that our police can track you from building to building if you want. Secured buildings, so different buildings you'll have to access with your ID and aren't open all of the time, especially your dorms. Here at Stony Brook, we can't get into buildings after hours unless we work in that building. So, and there are certain buildings that I can never get into. So I can never enter a residence hall because I don't live there or work in that residence hall. I'd have to be let in by a housing staff member. Labs are secure. I don't work in a lab, so I can't get in there. So there's just a number of ways that most schools will have a tremendous amount of safety measures. So I gave you a lot of information on some of the things to consider, how to consider them, how to process a little bit of some of your own self-reflection. But as I mentioned in the very beginning, there's over 4,500 schools in the US alone to consider. And how do you start searching and narrowing that down? Of course, the internet is going to be your best, your best way to start navigating that program, but also through a number of opportunities, virtual events like this one, virtual college fairs. Your high school may have a fair. The Education USA office is also a wonderful resource. Highly recommend you to connect with the Education USA office in your home country. They are specifically an employee of the US State Department that is there to help advise for free and guide you to applying to universities in the US, some scholarship opportunities. They even do pre-departure areas. So highly recommend. Private organizations will have a variety of different virtual events and in-person events in your major cities. So definitely consider that. And then once you start finding some schools of interest, even if after your search you decide not to apply to them, just like you're doing here, attending virtual sessions, virtual information sessions, one-on-one meetings, there's interviews, there's specialty sessions, even following their social media sites or viewing student videos or any kind of campus videos and pictures from each university that is of interest. And this is also where I start saying organization is your friend. So I'm a spreadsheet person on this kind of thing, listing out the schools that may be of interest, kind of keeping their website, keeping a few notes of why it was a possibility to apply to. You're certainly going to have a spreadsheet once you start applying to keep yourself on track. But this will help narrow it down. Even if you didn't like something, you can be able to put it on there and say, like, do not apply because XYZ. And then again, sort of every school will have virtual tours. There's a great site called UVisit, which will have multiple university tours on there. YouTube, of course, any social media sites, you can kind of go down that rabbit hole and find a lot of information. So depending on where you are in the process of your high school time, will depend on when you are ready to apply. But we really encourage everyone to speak to admissions counselors. Oftentimes, when students apply or after they've applied, they'll call and ask some questions about some of the things we just talked about. And I may give them an answer that says, oh, if I would have known that, I wish I didn't apply. So if there is something that I didn't talk about or that you don't see on a university's website, that is a must-have in order for you to attend, it's important for you to make sure that that university that you're applying to has it before you apply. It's not necessary, for you to go through that process. It's a lengthy process. It costs money to apply to universities. There's a lot of commitment to writing essays. So you want to make sure that you are applying to somewhere that you would attend. So you should always feel free to contact any admissions counselor at any university by email. Again, at Stony Brook, we offer virtual appointments every day, so those are things to consider. You'll want to look at the application type, whether there's a paper application versus online, a common application, the coalition application, what that essay and personal statement is, what else is needed, letter of reference, academic records, does that school require tests and or English proficiency? When schools say test optional, they often refer only to SAT or ACT, but most schools will still require some kind of version of English proficiency and or give you specifics on how that English proficiency is waived. So for example, at Stony Brook, we waive English proficiency if you're from an English-speaking high school that you've attended for 3 or more years, or if you're from an English-speaking country. So you kind of want to get in this mind frame, especially for those who are about to enter their last year. Applications open, the Common Application, Coalition application are the most common in US universities, and they open August 1st. So you can begin applying as early as August 1st. And you'll want to really do that earlier than later. A lot of students think that the timeline is perhaps the same as their home country, or that they have to wait until their final year's predicted grades or final grades are out, which is not the case at all in the US. It's actually really important to make sure you are applying by deadlines of the schools in the US. And we will use grades from 9, 10, and 11 to make a decision for your application. At Stony Brook, again, the application opens August 1st. Our early action deadline is November 1st, and our regular application deadline is January 15th, all for the following fall. So it's really important to spend sometimes the summer months to start preparing for your application, writing your essay, personal statement. So when August, the application opens, you are able to begin that application and start submitting it. Again, we cannot encourage this enough, but you do not wait until any of those 12-year grades are ready, because it will be too late. Typically schools will not always extend the deadline of their application. It's something that's school and school specific. So I talked a lot about Stony Brook throughout this. This is just a quick picture of it, but I kind of went through a lot of these statistics. One thing to mention is, I did mention we were part of the State University of New York. We are the flagship of that SUNY system, ranked number 58 in US News and World Report, and about an hour from New York City, with a train station right on campus. We're about 3 miles from our local beaches. And I mentioned a lot of our programs and our application. I want to take a pause and open it up to questions. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen and thank everyone so much for attending. And let students or let all of you open it up to any questions that we may have. I'm also going to stop recording really quick.